Hello, ladies. It is Tiffany of Clarity, Confidence, Courage, Women's Empowerment, and I want to talk about a concept that a lot of people won't relate to unless they have gone through a divorce. I know my divorce was extremely difficult, and I thought that as soon as I got divorced, I could get back to a normal life and keep going. But what I didn't realize was the number one asset that I had after my divorce was not money, it was not leaving my spouse, it was something else. And it was something that really helped me move forward faster. And I know it's something that most people are probably not going to assume that it's this thing, but I'm telling you, this is the thing that you have to surrender to after a divorce. Now, before we jump into this content, make sure you share, like, and subscribe, and let other women know, especially those who have been divorced, that this is the type of information they can use to move forward, reinvent their lives, and rebuild their joy. All right, let's jump into the content. Now, I know you may be thinking, well, Tiffany, what is the number one asset that you're talking about? Like, what is this thing? Well, ladies, before we jump into exactly the asset that I'm talking about that you absolutely need after you get divorced, I want to tell you how this came to be a reality for me. How did I recognize what this asset was? Now, most people who follow me know that I am divorced. I was with the same person since I was 26 years old, so we were together for almost 10 years, and we were married for 6 years. This was a person that I was extremely close to. I can honestly say at that time, he was my best friend. And we had been through so much together. But we had also had a lot of challenges even before we got married. A lot of issues, a lot of ups and downs. And it was a very tumultuous relationship. So after we got married, things didn't always necessarily get better. It would go up, it would go down. And most of my life, I was told that when you are married, that is normal. You're going to have your up days, you're going to have your down days, you're going to have your challenges, but you just have to work through them. You just have to be willing to put in the effort to make your marriage work. And yes, I was told constantly by well-meaning people that marriage is hard. Marriage is tough. You got to fight for it. You got to work hard for it. So I went into my marriage with that mentality that I would not get a divorce, that I would do whatever it took to make it work. And that yes, this person, I knew they had a lot of issues, but I could support him enough to make it work. And ladies, I went through that for many years, telling myself that I can just make it work. I can just help him and support him and be the wife that he needs so that he can run his own business, so that he can follow his dreams and his career. And I did that for years and years and years. And it didn't work. It did not work. And I'm not saying it didn't work from the standpoint of supporting him was a bad idea. I think that husband and wives or people that are in long-term relationships should support each other. However, me supporting that person did not fix all the issues we had in our relationship. And we would go to therapy and we'd go to counseling and we would go to church groups. We even had, quote unquote, marriage mentors, people that had been married a number of years that we would go to lunch with every so often, again, to be around, to learn from. But the arguments didn't stop. The unusual behaviors, the anger, the blow-ups, they didn't stop. And it came to a point where I literally felt like I was walking on eggshells in my own home. And I didn't even like going home. I would try to find so many excuses to not go home. I would literally wake up early, go to the gym, work out, go straight to work. From work, I would work late. Then I would go back to the gym and I wouldn't get home till late just because I no longer wanted to be around this person that I had been married to. This person I was calling my best friend. It had gotten that bad. But what really set me off was the day that my spouse got so angry with me over, at the time, what seemed like a simple disagreement. It wasn't even that serious of a topic that we were talking about. It wasn't like, oh, somebody's cheating or anything. It was just like, I disagree with you, you disagree with me. He got so angry, he started cursing at me. He started walking towards me. He threw our kitchen table across the room. That's how angry he had got. He had become enraged. And this was not the first time I saw him like that, but this was the first time that I was afraid. This was the first time that I looked at him and I didn't see my best friend. I didn't see that person that I forgave so many times for the things that he had done, or I didn't see that person that I supported and I loved. I saw someone I did not know. And that someone made me feel unsafe. And that was the moment I knew something had to change. And I literally told him, like, after it was all said and done, the next day, he of course apologized. I don't know why I got so angry, which he had done before. I told him in that moment, I cannot live in this home with you if you do not receive psychiatric help. Because I knew that what happened, him throwing the table, him becoming violently angry, had nothing to do with me. I was just a small piece of a larger issue. And so we both agreed that we were both going to go into counseling, separate counseling at first, and then we may get marriage counseling together. He went into counseling, I went into a separate counselor. And as I was going to counseling and therapy, I literally couldn't function. It was like after that day, I literally couldn't think straight. I couldn't get it out of my mind again that this person that I love so much had become so enraged at me I no longer knew what he was going to do next. And I was crying every day. I could barely get out of bed. I would go to the gym, cry in the shower. I would work out, get in my car, I would cry. I would go to work, I would close my door at my office and I would cry in my private office. Like I could not, the anxiety was so high. It was like I could barely function. I couldn't focus on simple tasks. And I knew deep down, because I've been in the psychology and public health world for so long, I knew I was going through a depression. I knew I was on the verge of probably a nervous breakdown. And I remember going to my therapist one day, the one I had at that time where he was still in the home. And every week, every time I go into her office, I would just sob. I would just cry so much that we could barely get through the session. And she finally just said to me, Tiffany, do you want to stay in this marriage? Because the answer that you give me is how I know that's the only way I'll know to try and help you. If you want to stay, I'm going to have to teach you coping mechanisms to deal with his personality, to deal with his behavior, and so that you stay safe. If you don't want to stay, then I'm going to have to show you how to exit the marriage in a way, again, where you are safe and he doesn't hurt you. And I made the decision in that moment that I wanted a divorce. It was the hardest decision I've ever made. Because even though I had been through so many painful experiences with this person, I still loved him deeply. And I knew, and eventually it came out, that he had a disorder. He had a personality disorder. I knew deep down it wasn't just anger and hatred towards me. It was a psychological issue. In any case, after I got divorced, that was the beginning of what I call the intimidation. And his behavior just got worse. He started following me. He started following me to the gym. He would show up at my job. He would send me text messages throughout the day. It was frightening. And those couple months after I got divorced were some of the roughest months I had ever experienced. And being the type of woman that I was, a go-getter and achiever in all the other areas of my life, I felt like, okay, I've gotten divorced. It's time for me to get over this. It's time for me to move on. I'm no longer in the marriage. He's no longer in the house. There's no excuses for me to just keep going on with my life, hitting my goals, moving forward. Ladies, I wanted to be over it. I wanted to not feel my feelings. I wanted to not experience all the pain that I was going through. And as I would go to my therapist and I would tell her this, okay, I've gotten divorced. I've done all the stuff that I need to do to be safe. He's no longer in the home. It's time for me to move on. No more excuses. But the one thing my therapist told me, she said, Tiffany, here's the thing you don't understand. Your emotions are valid. Your fear and your pain is valid. And you cannot coast through this. You cannot fast forward through this. What you're going through is called healing. And it's going to take time. You're going to have to surrender to the pain. It's not going to go away overnight. And there are no distractions that you can have in your life that's going to make you feel better. And so, ladies, that's what I want you to understand. The most important asset that you have after a divorce is time. So many of us want to push through. We want to do the divorce, the after divorce life, like we do everything else. Okay, I've got it done. Let's get to the next thing. Let's hit these goals. Let's get these milestones. We want to just push through and work. But here, I am here to tell you that's not what's going to happen. It's not about the money. It's not about, who got the house or who got the dog, or it is not about dating again. It's not about jumping into another relationship. It's about giving yourself time. Time to grieve because you still went through a loss. No matter what that person did, you two had been together. There was a time where you were happy, where there was love or what felt like love. And it's gone. Even if it wasn't great, it's gone. And it's a big chunk of your life that is missing. You must give yourself time. And you must realize that the greatest asset that you have after a divorce or after a breakup of a very long-term relationship is time. And using that time to go deep inside yourself and reflect and heal and cry and grieve and allow yourself to go through all the emotions, and you will, and to not try to distract yourself from it. Just surrender to it. Because the more you try to distract yourself and the less time you give to the surrender, to the allowing, to the confronting it, the less time you allow yourself to do that, the harder it will be. Trust me, I know. And I don't just know because of what I went through. I know because of all the women that I've coached who have gone through the same thing. I know because of all the women that I have interviewed and talked to and have met who have gone through the same thing when they got divorced. And they said the exact same thing. You have to give yourself time. You have to allow it. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be pretty all the time. But it's worth it. Because what's going to happen in the end, when you heal, when you give yourself that time, that is the first brick of the foundation of your new life. That is how you'll be able to move on in a healthy, compassionate, forgiving way. So I wanted to do this video because I know so many women who follow me are divorced or are going through a divorce or have gone through a very painful breakup from a very long-term relationship. And I get it. So give yourself the time that you need to heal, to have compassion for yourself, and to forgive yourself, to forgive that person, to forgive the circumstances that brought you to that person, to that situation, so that you can move on. I stayed in therapy for almost 3 years, and it was the best decision I made. I didn't date. I didn't go on, I had friends and we went out and I did things, but I didn't hide and I didn't run from it. I said, this is painful. And every day I'm just going to have to take my time and allow myself to heal and allow myself to cry. And it was the best decision that I made. Because now, now that I have healed, now that I have moved on, I was able to create an amazing business all these years later and help other women just like me, the person that I was, to grow and to heal and to reinvent themselves and to move forward faster. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what you think. And if you're in a space where you're like, Tiffany, I'm still trying to understand that concept. I'm still trying to heal and build a new life for myself after this divorce, after this breakup. If that's where you are, then definitely click the link below. We'll jump on a free coaching strategy session to really talk through where you are, how you can move forward, and the steps you can take to tangibly and actively get there. All right, this is Tiffany of Clarity, Confidence, Courage, Women's Empowerment. Be sure to share, like, and subscribe. Bye.